All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you, wherever you are in this beautiful world. Welcome to our Inner Circle Live New York session. I'm your host, Ryan Carthage. We'll be joined shortly by my awesome partner, Mr. Benny Allen. Hope everybody's doing well today on this beautiful Wednesday. As always, let's turn off all distractions, grab pen and paper, let's take lots of notes. Let's make sure that we participate and engage. And as always, we want to start our day off by taking massive action. That action stands for accepting all possible losses before entering a trade, preparing you for any outcome, centering yourself, body, mind, and spirit, ensuring a balanced approach to trading, trusting your education, strategy, trade skills, and intuition. Imagine your trade successfully materializing, obeying your trading strategy, avoiding decisions based on greed or fear, and never looking back or stopping once your trade has commenced. All right. And if everybody can hear me okay, drop me one in the chat and we will get things rocking. Perfect, perfect. All right, cool. Appreciate it. Um, so let's slide over to trading economics. We got some things happening. Uh, cool. All right, so first up, UK inflation. UK inflation rate accelerated. Annual inflation rate in the UK jumped by 3.5% in April, the highest since January 2024. Um, from 2.6 in March and above the forecast for 3.3, right? So they expected inflation to increase. They didn't expect it to increase as much as it did, but we got inflation back on the move, right? Main upward pressure came from higher electricity and gas prices after the OFGM price cap increase, while new vehicle excise duty, right? There's a transportation tax that has to be paid on electric cars, lifted transport costs, um, and food inflation also picked up. Meanwhile, core inflation accelerated 3.8%, the highest in a year. All right. So from 2.6 to 3.5 on the overall, and then the core inflation, removing those volatile items, was even higher. All right. So we're back to having inflation concerns in other parts of the country. I mean, in other parts of the world. All right. So we'll keep that in the back of our mind because what this does is um, the UK, the Bank of England, was expected to cut rates at the next policy meeting. All right. Um, this could put a pause on that. Right. They could potentially hold because inflation is back to the upside. Okay. So things to think about as we move through the charts. Excuse me. All right. So the dollar, the dollar fell for a third straight session, reaching 99.7 on Wednesday, lowest level in 2 weeks as traders focus on the G7 finance minister summit for signals whether the U.S. administration might tolerate a weaker dollar. Excuse me. Might tolerate a weaker dollar. Excuse me. Speculation about potential dollar decline intensifies after recent reports that uh, Japanese and South Korean officials would hold currency talks with the U.S. At the same time, fiscal worries in the U.S. are growing. All right, President Trump has been urging politicians in Congress to unite behind the sweeping tax bill, but has far failed to sway key holdouts who could block the legislation. All right, adding the pressure on the dollar, Moody's downgraded U.S. credit rating last Friday to a AA1, stripping the currency of its final AAA rating from the major international agency. The downgrade cited concerns about rising government debt and expanding budget deficit. Right, the dollar weakened broadly, with the sharpest losses against the yen and the euro. Right. So the dollar is down and down significantly. Okay. And many reasons why. We talked about those yesterday. All right. And we got crude. Brent crude oil futures jumped above 66 per barrel on Wednesday after reports emerged that Israel is planning to strike an Iranian nuclear site. Right? The U.S. is trying to have these negotiations with Iran. Israel is not playing in that game. Um, while it remains unclear if Israel has made a final decision, the news has already sparked concerns about potential supply disruptions in the key oil producing Middle East region. Fears also are growing that Iran could retaliate by closing strategic import strait, strategically important Strait of Hormuz, right? A key export route for oil and fuel for major Gulf producers, including Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Iraq, and the UAE. So if they can't move the product, prices go up. However, right, easing some of these concerns, the API data showed that U.S. crude oil inventories rose by 2.5 million barrels last week. Following a 4.3 million barrel increase the week before, defying expectations of a 1.9 million barrel draw. Right, so more oil was being produced than expected. Right, so there's some in the coffers waiting in the event that we do have this closure of the Strait of Hormuz. But this could lead to larger concerns, which means ultimately oil to the upside. So that's oil. The euro area, both stocks 50, stocks 600 slipped 0.2% on Wednesday, retreating from nearly 2-month highs reached the previous day as traders await new catalysts amid concerns over stalled trade talks, weak economic data, and corporate earnings. Right, markets are closely watching the ongoing G7 finance ministers meeting for all signs of that a weaker dollar could support progress in trade negotiations. Right, so that'll be interesting to see there. In the UK, inflation rose 3.5%, prompting investors to scale back expectations that the Bank of England for Bank of England rate cuts. Right. On the corporate front, JD Sports shares plunged 7% after reporting a 2% drop in underlying sales. Julius Baer fell 5.5 following news of a Swiss franc $113 million write-down. And Marks and Spence lost more than 3% after revealing a recent cyber attack that could result in a 300 million euro hit in the operating profit. In contrast, Infineon gained 1.6% after announcing a collaboration with NVIDIA to develop new power delivery architecture for AI data centers. That should be interesting. That'll be interesting there. All right, so that's where we are. There, over to the calendar. Right, we talked about that CPI data up, core CPI data up. Right. So now we have for the rest of the day, right, those G7 meetings. Should be interesting as we continue to move forward. Crude oil inventories at 10:30. And then FOMC members coming to the microphone. We got flash PMI for the Aussie, flash services PMI for the Aussie, manufacturing PMI for the yen, and then end budget released for New Zealand dollar, right? So um the folks speaking should be interesting. Um Met with who, Joy? With Trump. He's lobbying everybody, man. He's trying to get as much support for this tax cut as possible. He even has Kathy Wood um, talking positively about the tax cut. So he's lobbying everybody to get the support to then push the folks in Congress and to go ahead and approve this thing. So yeah, he's trying to push everybody. Um, but it's a tough go. It's a tough go because there are some major concerns, and ultimately, I think they will approve it. I do, um, because he's going to put the pressure on those folks, right? He already has um, some of his people trying to shift the narrative of what will be impacted by this tax cut, right? Saying that it won't add to the deficit very much, right? When in actuality, it'll add to the deficit $3.3 trillion, right? They're saying that the impact to the deficit um, is negligible in press conferences. So they're trying to shift the narrative on what it actually is um, to make it good for the people. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a major impact um, on the people. And on the dollar and on the country as a whole. So, um, no, yeah, no, they're very likely, bro, very likely, um, very likely. But I think it happens. I think it happens. Um, so we'll see. We'll see how things go. But that's what's happening. Everybody's everybody's getting a talking to. Um, and you're trying to get as many allies as possible. So we shall see. We shall see. Any other thoughts or questions from a fundamental perspective? Oh, all right. All right. So we mentioned that dollar, right? We talked about yesterday this level. Boom. Right? DXY breakdown. Took out the A on the one. Right? This was the area that we were watching, the previous resistance, support. We were breaking below that level. We broke that level. We retested that level, and we're continuing down, right? So we got weakness in the dollar all around, and we could see that continue, right? So as we come back to the higher time frames, look at the daily, headed down, right? So our next level to watch is 97,665, right? That's that previous weekly support level. We'll watch to see how price responds there. If we break that level, obviously we're headed to that D extension, right? But we could be working on some longer term moves to the downside for the dollar, all right? Um, so just be aware of these key levels as price continues to move. And right now, as you read in the report, right? will the will the United States ultimately favor a weaker dollar to help them with trade negotiations, right? It's cheaper to transact in dollars, right? Um, could that be beneficial? If so, we could see additional things around how the dollar can be weakened further. Okay. So we'll keep an eye on that in the background as well, right? We come out to the weekly time frame, and this is that move down. Okay. So this level again, why this is key, we break this level, right? 97,665, we're likely going to get to that 91,951. All right. Um, We haven't been at this level since 2018, right? $85. But next level is here, right? This is a weekly fib to the downside, 618 retracement, matching extension 91,959. So we're short on the dollar. Come to the monthly time frame, same story, right? 618 retracement, 91, almost the exact number, right, on the weekly and on the monthly. So we're headed to the downside. See if price can hold up here, but we may not be able to. We may not be able to. We may see this dollar weaken further. Okay. So we'll see. We'll see. So that's where we're on the dollar on the four. This was your 80-20. We hit the D extension there. No, yeah, technically we hit that 382 there, but we didn't get to the D extension. We reversed out and we're headed south. Okay, so on the four, capital fib, 618 retracement, matching extension. Okay, so all pointing to downward pressure. I'm going to take these fibs out for now. And that 80-20 played out and we're headed down. Boom. Okay, so as we go and take a look at some of these other pairs, dollar yen down just shy of a 786 retracement. So we got a 618 retracement on this dollar yen. All right, we're headed down. Stochastic coming out of that zone. Still got some downward pressure to go. Right, and this could go back and forth a little bit depending on what happens with the yen. But as of now, this is being led by dollar weakness. Okay, so 139 is going to be the key level here to watch and see where price goes. We come down to the four, flip the fib in the opposite direction, AB boundary down. We'll continue to watch this as it moves to the downside and see if it stays inside that AB boundary, but we could likely take that out as well if the dollar continues to crash. Okay, so we'll watch. 80, $20 Swiss and only in both in 30 minutes. Okay. We'll take a look at that, right? Because you could be due for a retracement, certainly, right? There's been a strong move to the downside here. So definitely could be due for a retracement on the lower time frames. As we come down to the one, right? There is that move down. Again, same as the 4 hour. Watch that AB boundary to see if we stay inside or we take that out. Okay. Um, reset, he's got an 80-20 on the 30. Run the fib off the high. Boom. Right? Shallow retracement, 118, 127 zone. Trying to get a double bottom to form there, right? And then we're looking for the move here. Okay. And on this, as of right now, fundamentally, been holding long, 142, 278. Yeah, watch closely on that, Joy. Um, yeah, you're gonna want to watch that one closely. Um, and watch the fundamentals to see if things start to shift. But we could see this tail off a little further, get down that 139, 522 level. Um, but looking for a high price to then get back short until fundamentals say different, right? Fundamentally, we're down and we're down good, right? Um, so 80-20 here on the sub fib, shallow retracement, 118 and 127 zone. Looking for that move back to the upside. Okay. Looking for that move back to the upside. Boom. Okay. Like that. And then we'll see what happens from there. Right? 80-20 on the 30 on the pound yen. I mean on the dollar yen. Uh Great setup right there. Drop them sevens in the chat for Reese. Great work, bro. All right. So there you go there. We'll continue to monitor that from a short-term and long-term perspective. Okay. Um, dollar Swiss. I'll start here. Reese said he has an 80-20 here as well. And this is another one that broke a key level, but we'll run this fib to the downside. There we go. 80-20 on the dollar Swiss. Down, shallow, no retracement, right? Just continue to push to the downside. 118, 127 zone, turnover. Okay, run this fib there. AB boundary, 618 retracement. Boom, that matching extension on that sub fib to the upside puts you right at that 382 level, right? So maybe you get another push down, but ultimately looking for the retracement to come here. Okay. We'll look at it from a higher time frame level as well, just to see what some of these key levels are. But retracement on the way. Okay. Um, Strong move to the downside. So we'll see if we get a bit of a relief. Market take a breath. And then we could continue this trend to the downside as well. All right. So dollar Swiss to the upside on the 80-20. Okay. All right. So let's go back now. The daily. We got a 382 push there. Turn it over a little bit. Right? Pulling back. Stochastic coming out of that sell zone. Okay, so this definitely could be a longer term move to the downside as well. Let's zoom out further. Let's do this. Boom. So we'll watch and see here, right? This is a key level as we go back. Boom. Boom, right? So this is a key level here that we broke down. We broke through, we came back above, and we're kind of range bound in this area. All right. Our capital fib says 236 retracement. Let's see if we push down into this 118, 127 zone here on the dollar Swiss over the long term, right? Short term, right? 30-minute time frame, come back up, retest some of these levels, but can then continue to the downside for a deeper push. right? Watching this next level here as potential, right? 77,117. Okay. So down. Haven't gotten that retracement yet to come back and retest the breakout of that area. But we're breaking down below this key level. Okay. So, a longer term perspective, looking for a move down, and then we'll see if we get a bounce or if we break that level too. Okay. Come down to the 4. So we'll run this fib off the high here. Boom. There's our capital fib, right? We got those smaller waves in there. Capital fib is here. 618 retracement. 618 retracement. Breakdown, right? Matching the extension in line with that weekly support level that we saw, right, from a daily time frame that'll put us in an 80-20 zone, right? So looking at C to D move here on the dollar Swiss, okay? As we come down to the 1, see what we got here. Boom. Beautiful 80-20, back to a 50% retracement. Now we're moving down. ABCD waves again, right? Matching extension is here at 79,881. So all signs are pointing over the long term to the downside, with your smaller waves giving you ABCD waves to the downside, right? So coming back to that 30-minute time frame, right? 80-20, we're looking for a high price to get back short, right? If we can push into that 618 retracement area, beautiful. Boom. And then we'll look for an opportunity to get short. Questions on the dollar Swiss? Follow me there. All right. It all leads to the same thing. Those ABCD waves playing out beautifully. All right, cool deal. Benny mentioned Tesla yesterday before we got off. So I wanted to come back to it, right, and just take a look at where we are and what we're working with here. Okay. Over the long term, this capital fib on the daily, 80-20, been slowly taking its time working out of the zone, right? We got a 236 retracement there, and then we pulled back into the zone, and now we're turning over. Okay. We got a break of the daily. Some of the things that have been happening on the back end. Nvidia, I'm sorry, Tesla, Elon Musk made a commitment to continue buying chips from Nvidia and AMD, right? Along with them building their own chips. um, Elon Musk's AI tool, which is used in some of the tech with Tesla, was also added into Microsoft tools, right? Microsoft had a big launch day. I believe it happened yesterday, or the day before. XAI was uh, incorporated into their Microsoft's technology. So you got things happening on multiple fronts that are giving Tesla a boost overall. We got a cloud break on the daily, right? Beautiful cloud break on the daily here, bullish ahead, TK crossover, lagging span above price. Okay. We come down, we have this 80-20 here, right? That been talking about for a while, lingered in the zone, and then you see breakout, boom, and run into the upside through both TPs. Likely take out that A. Okay, we'll look for a pullback first. So run that fib there, right, and look for a pullback at some point. See if we can come back and retest this cloud, deep retracement. We get some action like that and give us a beautiful opportunity to re-enter this trade and take this ride to the upside, right? Getting us to take this, bring that there. Boom. Pull back, getting us to that 382 level 524. Right. 234 pips. Right. Or 2,349 points. So, right, opportunities on Tesla, the 80/20 is playing out beautifully to the upside. All right. And we'll look for it ultimately to pull back and continue. Tech is definitely doing a thing right now with the current climate and with the commitments that other countries are making to a lot of these companies um, and things that the government is trying to put in place to also support um, tech. So, boom to the upside. Right, we come down to the one. First, capital fib, 80/20 to the upside. We got to that 382 level. Boom. We zoom in on those sub fibs to the upside. Here you got an 80/20, looking at that retracement back down before we continue to the upside. Right. So we got 80/20 to the downside on Tesla. Looking just for a correction, a low price to then get back long. Right. So we'll look for Tesla to come back at least to that 312, right? 312 as a minimum. We'd like it to come back deeper to that 296 area, right? 296, 296 or below, and then give us an opportunity to get back long there. Okay. So that's Tesla, right? Beautiful move to the upside. We're looking for corrections and continuations. Okay. Questions here? Great long-term investment opportunity there. Nope. All right.
Oh,
Cool deal. Um, we talked about oil running, so let's take a look at it. All right. Interesting space right now on the daily. We're sitting at this key level 63, 64. Had this spike, came back down, trying to figure things out and what's happening. You also have U.S. trying to negotiate a ceasefire with Russia and Ukraine. Um, so you got a lot happening around the world, right? So we had a nice spike up, but we're consolidating right now, right? From a broader perspective. Beautiful double bottom. We move to the upside. We got a retracement back to the 50% level, and we're trying to make our way higher. Okay, we're still above the cloud. So we'll see how price moves. Um, we'll see how price moves as we continue through the week. Ultimately, I'm looking for oil to break this level and continue moving higher, but we might get a retracement before that occurs. So I'll continue to monitor that from a broader perspective. Okay, good morning, Deb. Um, but that's where we are. Okay, so you got a lot of back and forth happening. We'll see what those crude oil inventories look like today. That could also give us a boost in one direction or the other. in the short term. But long term, I'm looking for oil to continue to the upside, just with everything that's happening, all the wars that are happening. Yeah, there's a push to increase production. U.S. trying to negotiate with Iran, and tons of things happening. The only thing that's happened is the increase in production. But that could be shut down if Israel actually pulls the trigger on this strike, right? And that could put a halt to a lot of things. So, and put the U.S. in a situation where they have to make a decision. Um, but overall, right, that double bottom held strong, strong push. Correction isn't out of sight here, but ultimately with that double bottom, I am looking for the for oil to continue moving to the upside. All right. So that's what I'm looking at on oil is long, even after some corrections. Questions on oil? No.
No.
All right. This pound NZD, it's been lingering and lingering and lingering. It's trying to make its way, right? We got back to that 236 level, right? After push down, three touches at that support level. We finally broke the cloud and kind of continued up, but we're consolidating right now, right? Making a little wedge here, right? Got a little wedge happening here. Okay. So just patiently waiting, allowing this one to do its thing, but looking for this at some point, right, to break out to the upside and continue to trek at least to that 382 level, and then we'll monitor for a deeper move. Okay. But slowly taking its time, but it's making it happen out of that 118, 127 zone. We're already at 380 pips, right? To that level is 600. So a little bit more than half to go. Okay. But slowly moving. So we'll continue to monitor that one in the background as it's doing its thing. Just wanted to touch base on where things are there. Hopefully, some of you are still holding this one to the upside. Joyce is holding 2.23. So around this area here. Great work, Joy. Drop some sevens in the chat for Joy. Great entry on this one. 2.23, somewhere around this range here. All right. I love it. I love it. Pull the trigger in the zone, right? In that 118, 127 zone, and you leave it alone, right? Allow it to continue to move and do its thing. I love it. I love it, right? And we'll come back and set that TP level. Once it gets there, it gets there, right? So great work. Great work. So sitting in that one long, continue to be patient there, allow it to do its thing. Take a look at the euro dollar, pushing to the upside. Boom. Daily time frame, 50% retracement. All right, 50% retracement. And we're pushing long. Stochastic movement up in the zone. We'll continue to monitor to see how things go from a dollar perspective, right? But there are some things happening in the background with the euro. Um, Long term, we could definitely start to see euro strength continuing to build. Okay. Um, they cut early, they cut often, and now they got inflation moving back into their zone. So we'll watch and see what happens. But looking at euro strength over the long term could be ideal. Okay, so we come back down to the four, 50% retracement. Didn't get that last push down to that zone, broke the trend line, and we broke the cloud. You see the break of the cloud, the retest of the cloud. And now we're continuing to the upside here, right? So we're in the midst of a C to D move here on this euro dollar. Could get pullbacks along the way, but we likely headed to 119 on this euro dollar play here. Okay, especially if the trend continues from a fundamental perspective of supporting a weak dollar. Okay, so that's on the move to the upside. Get this in here. Boom. Okay, so we'll watch this. We'll watch this move. All right, come down to the one, similar to that 4, 6, 1, 8 retracement. Boom. Take off to the upside. Broke all of our trend lines, inner, middle, outer trend line. Previous support levels, broke through those. We're headed to the upside. Now we're tracking ABCD waves long. Okay. Boom. Headed to the D extension there. All right. So this is on the go. Okay. So this is one. If we get a pullback, get a nice entry on it to the upside off the lower time frames. Could be an opportunity to sit in this one from a long-term perspective um, on a ride to the upside. The extension achieved. Wait for a fresh AB boundary and the pullback. That's on your 30, on your 15, similar story. All right, so that's the euro dollar. Looking for a continuation long. Pound dollar. Already hit a D extension there. We got some consolidation happening here at this level. Okay. We'll watch and see if we get a retracement to come here. This fib would look like this. We already got a 382 push there. Let's watch that. This is our capital fib, right? Those are sub fibs running to the upside. Here's our capital fib. We got a 786 retracement here. Matching extension 138, 476. So if we zoom in here, right? These sub fibs running off the C point us right in that direction. That matching extension is just inside of that D extension on that next fib that should populate here. Okay. So pound dollar long, especially right, inflation to the upside on the pound. Um, if they hold their rate, right, or even have the conversation of potentially increasing, you could see this run, right? Talks from FOMC members, the Fed is looking at holding all decisions on rate changes um, or rate cuts until September, right? So the Fed plans on holding rate steady through the summer. Is where things currently stand because of the back and forth, and we haven't really seen the impact of tariffs yet, right? That hasn't come into the data yet. So they're anticipating that coming in. And then with this 90-day pause period, right, puts things in a back and forth flux. So Fed is anticipating holding. If the Bank of England changes their stance from a cut to a pause, you could see this move to the upside. Right. So um, that's where we're on the
Ryan,
day. Yes.
yeah, you see that sub fee that you just applied over there.
Uh-huh.
Um, from the B boundary, is there can that be a possible crown?
Inverted crown. Looking at this here.
Yeah,
Potentially. Potentially. Let's see. Um, so let's go down to the 4 and look at it here. This is what you're looking at right here. Is that what you see?
Yeah.
Potentially, for sure. Yeah, yeah. Good eye on that.
Mm.
Good eye on that. Let's see if we get this retracement here, right? Pull back down. Maybe the dollar gets a breath, right? Before its continuation to the downside, which we looked at some of those others. Um, so let's see. Let's see. All right, we'll leave that on there. See if we get that retracement action giving us that crown pattern. Good eye, Jeremy. All right. And while we're here on the four, signs are pointing up here as well, right? So if that crown pattern plays out, we got a 618 retracement here, right? We get another pullback, continuation to the upside, leading us higher toward that daily extension. What we got here? What happened? I do. Oh, I changed on the wrong time frame. Sorry. Back to the four there, right? So leading us higher here. So we got 139 on the matching D extension here on the daily, right? On the capital fib, we got 138. So between 138 and 139, we'll drop a line here. Boom. We'll take this down. Boom. So coming back to that idea of long, right? 136, just shy of that 138 D extension on the daily. Okay. So looking long there. Oh, I took that. Okay. So that's on the four. Okay. That's on the four. That's where we are. And we come down to the one. See what we see here. So we got to the D extension. This lines up, Jeremy, right? So we hit the D extension with that spike to the upside, taking out that right tip, right? So I mean that left tip. So now we look for a new AB boundary to form once that swing high completes and things get caught up. That's a fresh AB boundary. We get a pullback here, back into our sweet spot, right? Left tip, foresee the right tip, boom, 618 retracement, headed to 136. Great work, Jeremy. Great work. Drop some sevens in the chat on that. Let's go.
Thank you.
Right? Boom. So now we be patient, right? Allow this retracement to happen. Come back down into our sweet spot, hopefully. Look for consolidation, price to slow down and start making that reversal. And then look for that buying opportunity for that crown, setting us up for that longer term move to 138,592. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. Questions on the pound dollar?
No.
Cool deal. Boom. All right. So that's where we are there. Let's check on this Euro Aussie and that move we were looking at yesterday to the upside. And so what I don't think I came all the way back here, but from a monthly time frame, right? We were testing this level at 170. We broke out, came back to retest that zone, right? Look at that. Came back to retest that zone. So we come down to the weekly and you see, boom, move back down, retesting that area. Okay, that should have been there. Retesting that area, boom, just shy of a 382, but you see we're turning over here. All right. So on the daily, we got that nice deep retracement, bang, swing low formed, and we're making our way to the upside. All right. So we're headed up. Stochastic pushing into that sell zone. Okay. So we could get some downward pressure there. Just as a pullback on the lower time frame. So we come down to the 4. We had an 80-20, boom, for that reversal, right? Deep retracement on the lower time frame. 80-20 set us up for that reversal to the upside. As of yesterday, this is already continued moving long, right? Got some consolidation happening a bit there. So look for pullbacks and continuations to the upside on this Euro Aussie 80-20 on the 4, right? So we come down here to the 1, and there's that consolidation. We'll look for a retracement, give us potential entry opportunity in 50, 60%, 61.8% retracement zones, right? For this 80-20 on the 1 hour as well. Okay, so the 80-20 on the 4 and the 1 on the move. We're looking for pullbacks and continuations long. All right, talked about that euro. Could start to see this euro strength build over the next couple months as we move through the summer. Okay, so we'll continue to keep our eye on the euro and these pairs. We could see these moves really start setting up and moving to the upside. Okay. Questions on the euro Aussie? No. Buy stop 30 pips. Beautiful. Great work, Joy. All right. Um, check on this Aussie dollar 80-20. Still lingering in the area. Now you understand the back and forth that's happening here, right? You got the Aussie who cut rates, right? But you have a weak dollar, right? But you have a weak dollar. So this consolidation makes sense, right? So we're still lingering in the zone, still continuing to stretch this thing out. Boom. So we'll continue to monitor that, continue to be patient, and we'll see what happens. Okay. Both relatively weak currencies right now. Okay. So that's going to continue to bounce back and forth for a little while. All right. So that's the Aussie dollar. And that's where we are. Questions on anything that we covered this morning, good people?
No, but I just want to add it's an 80-20 on gold. It might just
On
be a
gold.
shallow retracement.
Let's take a look real quick.
I found support at 325667, but I'm looking for to see if price is going to turn bearish. But if the dollar's not, it might go to that D extension.
Let's see. Let's see. So we got support here on the daily. And so with everything that's happening, right? Um, we know that, or we anticipate that as the impact of the tariffs actually is felt in the market, increase in inflation. You already had Walmart say that they're passing on um, cost increases to the customer. Donald Trump is trying to push them to eat the tariffs. You have Amazon, who also is passing those verbally said, right? And they're even working on putting it on the website to show the increase in price due to tariffs, but passing those costs on to the customer. So we know tariffs is a tax on the people, right? Businesses are going to pass the cost on to the customer all day long. They're not going to eat that to decrease their profits, right? Um, and so with that, you have an increase in inflation, right? The cost of things are going up and going up faster than the Fed would like, which also is why they're doing this pause until the fall to see where things land, and to see if there's any traction with the U.S. and China, right? Or any of the other countries for that matter. VIX edge up to 19 makes sense, right? You got some uncertainty in the market right now, right? Well, it's continued, but it's kicking up a little bit with the back and forth on the tax bill. You got companies coming out and saying that they are passing costs on to the customer. You're seeing some other countries start to feel the implications of tariffs and other things hit their data, and that's coming, right? And you have the downgrade added into that conversation, along with spikes in just the geopolitical tension overall when it comes to Israel and everybody that they're trying to drop bombs on, right? Um, so you got a lot of back and forth happening. So it makes sense that the VIX is pushing up, right? Um, so gold starting to creep back up makes sense. So we got that support there at 31.18. Okay, we'll come down to the four. Let's see. We're on the fib here. Here we got a 618 retracement. Weren't able to get to that D extension before that reversal, right? So we're moving back to the upside. We're trying to break that cloud there. We'll see if we get a nice bullish push there. We got the Kumo twist. Want to see a nice bullish push here above the cloud to confirm that lagging span above price. So we're headed to the upside, waiting on some additional confirmation here, but starting to make that shift. Okay. So we come down to the one, back and forth on the fib there. That makes sense, right? George said we got an 80-20. We'll take those back out. We'll run these to the upside. So a couple things here, right? 618 retracement headed to the D extension 3333.54. Okay. So as we got that, we'll drop down to the 30, see where we are. So let's do this. D extension on the one is here. That's the D extension on the one. We'll drop this down as we go to lower time frames. Whoops, my bad. 30-minute. Trying to push into that 118, 127 zone. That D extension is here at that 127, right? So we get another peak up to the upside, put us right in that zone and get to that D extension on the one and set us up for retracement there potentially, right? And then, right, retracement for continuation. So that would make sense. That would make sense. Okay. Especially if things continue to be uncertain. Okay. Boom. Um, Yep, we did. I did take a look at that. I gotta hop off here. But there you go. All right. Potential 80-20 on oil for retracement and continuation. Um, Boom. Great work, Joy. Great call. Okay. Oil. What time frame were you on, Reese? 1 hour and 30 minutes. All right, so that's what we got here. 50% retracement, trying to move to the upside there. On the 30, what time frame you looking at? You're looking at the sub fib here. There you go. Reese watching the sub fib here, 618 retracement, right? We talked about this retracement happening could potentially push a little bit deeper, right? But this sub fib here, do we stay inside that AB boundary and hold that level and then move back to the upside with those geopolitical tensions? Yes, sir. Great work. Great work, right? All playing out in those ABCD waves to the upside. Yeah, my bias on oil is long, right? We got Israel trying to bomb Iran nuclear facility, and then potential for Iran retaliation, a whole back and forth happening there. So, all right, good people. We'll be back at it tomorrow morning, 6:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for the pre-New York session. You guys have a phenomenal Wednesday. We'll see you then. Peace. And no doubt.